So welcome in. If you're new here, go ahead and smash that like button and say, hey, I'm new to the show. We do this show every morning at 9 a.m. Eastern time. And my little buddy is here as well. Grover is my co-host. Yeah, don't bury your head. He's one of the best co-hosts I've ever had in television. He doesn't do a lot of talking, but when he does, it's loud. All right, I do want to start this morning with Americans fleeing the big cities. So this is some troubling news for commercial real estate investors. And when we look at where people are moving right now, they are leaving the large cities for rural areas, suburban areas. Many people are moving to small towns north, like in New York City, moving north to the 5 boroughs. Their 4 upstate counties have seen an incredible surge in real estate demand, while the rest of the New York market is suffering. Pretty much big time right now. So a combination of things are at play. You have, of course, coronavirus pandemic, economic uncertainty. You have social unrest, prompting waves of Americans to move out of large cities, not just New York, but Chicago, Atlanta, Denver, because of prices there, but also civil unrest and concerns about the virus. But another big thing is also emerging and has emerged over the past few months during this pandemic is technology. And many people realizing, wait a second, I don't need to get on a subway and go to work anymore in Manhattan when I can do the very same thing from my mountain house in upstate New York. I can pay a fraction of the price to live here. I don't have to pay Manhattan city taxes anymore. And so this is going to be a big thing. You know, if you work in Manhattan, you end up paying I think it's a 3% city tax. Now, when I lived in New Jersey but worked in Manhattan, I still had to pay a 3% city tax, because I would physically go into the office. But now what's going to happen? You have this sort of Hamptons shaping up for a big fight with New York City and other regions, because if their office is still in New York, but you're not physically going to the office anymore, who gets that tax revenue? If New York could charge you 3%, it was a ridiculous tax. Even though I lived in New Jersey, I'd still have to pay a Manhattan city tax of 3% on my paycheck. In addition to which, I had to pay a toll of like $15 to $18 every time I would go through the Lincoln Tunnel to go into the city. Absurd. So this is another reason why people are rethinking where they want to work. Also, this is troubling news because not just the pandemic, right, which is enough to drive people out, but also this. Murder rates are skyrocketing right now. The number of shooting victims has gone up 51% in Manhattan alone. 616 murders this year in New York City. You would have thought that so many people being home would have kept this at bay, but that's not the case. And so people of all ages, of all incomes, are moving out of the city. This is not just high net worth individuals. This is college kids. These are millennials who are moving back in with their parents. They're getting out of Dodge. And real estate investors better pay attention to this, because commercial real estate was already being crushed. Large high-rise apartment complexes already in a lot of pain based on what was happening in these cities. Retail space right now being crushed. So all these high-rise apartment complexes in these inner cities are having to really drop their prices. San Francisco is putting up signs like crazy in order to try to get people to stay in their apartments. They're giving them, 3 months rent or 2 free months rent if they'll sign a 1-year lease. So landlords are right now having to get really creative about trying to keep people in these cities. I don't know about you, but I would not want to be living in one of these big cities right now. How many of you watching live in one of these big cities, and are you seeing this trend? Let me know in the comments below. So many people right now in New York specifically are moving to these 4 upstate counties. They've seen an incredible surge in real estate. The rest of the New York market is really suffering, but like in Ulster County, the number of homes now under contract has nearly doubled the 2016 numbers. Doubled. And we saw in the Catskill Mountains, bidding wars are breaking out among people for like 3-bedroom, 2-bath places. Bidding wars are breaking out where every bid right now is well over asking price. Boise, Idaho, from Boise, Idaho to Montana. So what's going on in Montana right now? Montana is on the rise. I used to live in Montana. I used to live in Helena, Montana. It's one of the most beautiful states. It was a dream of mine to move to Montana. Well, now they're also seeing a huge surge. Listen to this. Real estate in Montana has risen 10% higher than at this time last year. Rural Colorado, Oregon, Maine have also seen significant upticks in property sales out in those regions as well. And a lot of it being driven by the violence you're seeing in a lot of these big cities. Why would you want to be around this if you don't have to? You're seeing it all over the place, where you have, Mayor de Blasio is more concerned right now about painting murals on the street and then getting police department funding. I mean, about to slash $1 billion out of police department funding. No wonder you're seeing murders skyrocketing in these areas and civil unrest. We saw what happened in Seattle, right? In the CHOP zone. I mean, no thank you. No thank you. And also to just be on top of one another in public transportation, in those subways, those hot subway cars and buses in these cities. And it's so overpriced and ridiculously expensive. Perhaps this is a wake-up call for these cities from now on. Maybe they can start to lower some of these taxes, like Detroit did a number of years ago, to try to incentivize people to come back to the incorporated area. But these other cities may need to get on board with that. So there you go. People are buying houses in certain states like Vermont without even seeing the house. They're just picking up and buying these houses. They're not even looking at them. They're buying them online because the demand is there. We're seeing building construction uptick of 77% right now across the United States. So if you want to look for some silver linings in all of this, construction is happening at a big level right now, up 77% over last month. And that's good news for the affordable housing sector because we need houses. So let's give you the coronavirus update now. I want to get to this because we're seeing major surge in cases. And of course, this is not getting better. It's getting worse. Here's the latest right now. If you see what I've highlighted up here, it's 129,000 deaths. I bet by the time this show is over, in the United States, we'll have eclipsed that 130,000 number. And you just look at that yellow line in the lower right-hand corner of your screen, just the surge in cases. And just look at the United States right now, all in red. Now, how do we compare and stack up against these other countries this morning? Well, we're at the top of the list for trying to flatten the curve. So that's not a flat curve yet. That's still an increasing curve for the first 170 days. I mean, we've certainly gotten better than we were since day zero, but we are upwards of 50,000 cases per day. And here's how we stack up around the world right now. Look at how deep dark red. US is in first place as we compare ourselves to the rest of the world. Brazil and Russia, hot spots again. And India, not good news. Not good news. And now we've got this. This is where I'm most concerned right now, is this airborne version of this virus. So a number of scientists are saying that this is not droplets. It was first thought of that this coronavirus would be expelled through the lungs, and it was droplets and it would fall to the ground. Well, now, as you see the headlines there, a number of top scientists are calling on the WHO to revise this, that now a lot of the data is showing that airborne transmission is how this is passed. It's not just water droplets falling down. It's basically aerosolized, so it's staying in the air. So if airborne transmission is indeed a significant factor, why this matters, it would call for major adjustments in how to contain the virus, according to the New York Times this morning. So here's how it would break down. Masks would be needed even indoors, even if people are socially distancing. Healthcare workers may need N95 masks that filter out the smallest possible droplets as they care for coronavirus patients. Air ventilation systems in public places would need powerful new air filters. And it would likely call for ultraviolet lights to kill particles that are floating indoors. As if we needed more of a headache to try to stop this thing. Putting in additional systems. We're already seeing grocery stores putting in ultraviolet machines that go around to where people last opened those freezers, and it'll stand there with ultraviolet light and basically spray with ultraviolet light those freezer units. So we would need now new powerful ventilation systems. Who's going to pay for that? And are businesses going to be able to afford that? Think about how many businesses have old retrofitted buildings and residential retail space. They're already being crushed. How are they going to pay for that? It's not going to happen. But this is where we're at. This is according to these scientists are calling on the WHO to recognize it now because this data is showing itself. What about different states right now? Well, it's not good in Arizona. Right now, ICU beds there are nearly full. And this all happened over the weekend, basically. More trouble there. And in Florida and Texas, the growth is exponential there over the 4th of July weekend. 8,000 new cases in Florida and Texas, 11,000 in Florida, 8,000 in Texas. And then Miami Mayor Francis Suarez said that it's clear that this growth is exponential at this point. Let's listen to what he says they need to do in Miami.
How do you stop this spread? What more can be done?
Yeah, well, it's clear that the growth is exponential at this point. We've been breaking record after record after record all the last couple of weeks. We instituted about a week ago a mask in public rule, and we also increased the severity of penalties for businesses that don't follow the rules. Our county closed down the beaches for the July 4th weekend in the hopes that all these rules will have an impact, a positive impact. It takes a little bit of time to find out exactly, but we're obviously very closely monitoring hospitalizations, and we're very, very closely monitoring the death rate, which are lagging indicators that give us the impression that we have to take much stricter measurements.
Does that engender some confidence down there in Florida? I didn't feel. Do you feel like Florida's got a handle on it? Grover, what do you think? Yeah. Comforting, Florida. Texas also. And so I want to show you this because I think this is fascinating. Take a look at Texas numbers right now in these hospitalizations. Look when we had restaurants back to 50% in June 29th, July 4th, skyrocketing over just the past few weeks in Texas. Texas was seen really as a great beacon for us in this whole fight. Not so much anymore. Hospitals in Houston, all over the place in Texas are in trouble and dealing with trouble in Dallas, Houston, and other spots all over this great state of Texas. And just take a look at the map. Nothing right now. Nothing right now in the United States is like colored a pink, but Texas in a lot of trouble. So, with all of this being said, you have mayors right now that are trying to put back into some sort of lockdown procedures, beaches being closed, but you're seeing an alarming spike in the number of cases. And for those people that are watching right now I heard this argument this weekend from some friends who said, well, yeah, it's because they're doing increased testing. But we now have the data, which is out this morning, that says that has nothing to do with it. That in fact, the cases are now going further and faster than the testing. And in Florida, Arizona, Texas, and other hotspots, they don't even have the tests available. So the hospitalizations are far outpacing the tests. And 1 in 5 people right now who are being tested are testing positive. That's remarkable. So when anyone asks you, or you're around a table and someone says, yeah, but it's because we have more testing. No. The cases right now and the hospitalizations are outpacing the tests, and they don't have enough tests again. When have we heard this again? When have we ever heard this before? We don't have enough tests. That's exactly what's happening right now. And officials right there, health department officials, are worried about it. They don't have enough in these hotspot regions. So that is the very latest on reopening. So thanks so much, everyone, for joining us today on Morning Invest. I really want to thank you for subscribing to the channel, becoming part of this great community, and smashing that like button if we've brought you any value at all. Thank you so much for joining us on this Monday.